Hello and welcome to A Coffee Break. I'm sitting here with two experts. I have Rodrigo from Nokia and Jim from Heavy Reading, and we're discussing the evolution of security operations. Now, gentlemen, how do you enjoy your coffee?
I'm still basically morning here for me, so I'm having a decaffeinato, but that'll get me through until to lunch.
Okay, and Rodrigo, what about you?
And I like every type of coffee as long as it is in espresso.
Yes, so do I. I'm an espresso woman. I'm here in Helsinki, and Finland is one of the countries where people drink the most coffee in the world, which is quite funny because obviously we don't grow any coffee, but we drink a lot of it. Jim, I'd like to talk to you about security. Security is much more business critical than it was in the 3G and 4G era. How would you describe security, and in particular the role of CISO, the security ops teams today?
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, 3G, 4G world, security is always really important as well. Security has been important for service providers since they had their first networks, and that's not going to change. But really what is changing is the architecture. As we migrated from 3G to 4G through virtualization and NFV now into 5G, we're in the 5G cloud native world. And that really brings a whole new range of security issues, both from the types of security threats that service providers are facing, and also the types of networks that they're running 5G networks are based on. They're based on much more distributed and disaggregated networks that are cloud-based. And because of all these things, there's a lot of new requirements for the CISO to manage, to ensure that the network stays secure.
So their environment got more complex, right? They are overwhelmed with information coming from the different types of attacks that they can have from these environments. In many cases, advanced persistent threats from multiple attack vectors, which kind of made the security perimeter fade a little bit. And we have now an expanded attack surface.
The security analysts are constantly under pressure in timing, velocity and volume of cyber attacks. How is the industry helping SecOps teams in processes and software to tackle sophisticated cyber attacks?
I think one of the most important things that we're seeing is using AI and machine learning to really help networks be able to respond to threats in real time. I mean, that's really where it really comes down to. These threats are automated, so therefore responses have to be automated as well. So there's a lot more risk in terms of the types of threats, but also the complexity, and really the way you can manage that complexity and that level of threat is through a higher level of intelligence, which is what AI and machine learning brings to the table.
And how is this impacting 5G, and what do CSP need to protect new 5G services?
So on 5G, many of the applications are critical, and meaning that on 5G some attacks have bigger consequences. So for example, several verticals have critical use cases like healthcare or autonomous driving. So when we look into a 5G network, off the shelf, we need to think about zero trust architecture, access monitoring for entities and machines, zoning, secure communication. So those are table stakes. But we can also use 5G specialized XDR systems to enable and prioritize 5G attacks, provide visibility to all the different environments, meaning cloud, endpoints, network, improve the response time, and then enabling new 5G specific use cases.
Yeah, I agree with Rodrigo. I think from a 5G services context, when you think about what's happening with 5G in the core, it's a service-based architecture which opens the door to exposing APIs at different parts of the network. Could be third-party APIs. So there's a lot more opportunities for bad actors to be able to get access to the network, and also some of these will be third-party open source APIs. So open source is also something that has to be considered as we move to 5G.
Right, thank you. And how can we contain threats fast by using which new modern security operation tools or software? Jim, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I think Rodrigo mentioned XDR. I think XDR is an important one because it really kind of combines some of the functions. We've moved from this sort of defined node where you had something like a SIM that would do sort of event management, and you had a SOAR which kind of would do some orchestration. The reality is now we're 8 years after we started virtualizing our networks with NFV, we're now in a point where we have pure software applications that can integrate some of the functions that were in a SIM and a SOAR, and also things like analytics, but also in an automated context. I think that's a really important part. Automation is key to all this because the speed of 5G networks compared to 3G and 4G is much faster. So ultra low latency services, as Rodrigo said, these are critical services. So you need to be able to really secure them from the device all the way up to the application layer.
Yeah, I agree, and I would say that on top of this, we need to go well beyond the traditional rule-based detection technologies and use artificial intelligence basically to identify new behaviors, bad patterns on the network, and even threats that we are not aware that exist, but that we can detect just by monitoring the network.
And why does critical infra need an XDR? Rodrigo, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so Jim already mentioned that CM systems that many of our customers have. It's a 15 years old technology, mainly targeted to store logs and events. Then SOAR connected the dots, but the XDR brings the visibility across different environments, so networks, cloud infrastructure, endpoints. It brings the threat intelligence that allows to contextualize the threats and analyze, for example, network sessions for malware traffic on endpoints. And then it uses the artificial intelligence to create a normal behavior to the users and to the network entities. So when the normal behavior has deviations, this allows to detect anomalies and then to speed up the detection of these new threats.
Yeah, just to add to what Rodrigo said, as he said, it's really all about software and automation. To me, that's really what XDR is all about, being able to use AI machine learning tools and being able to adapt to real-time traffic changes and patterns. So from that perspective, I see an XDR as really kind of an evolution of security to the next layer of a software-driven model. And that's just not just for 5G. That's going to be in beyond 5G. Really what we're talking about is an architecture that can manage cloud-based microservices in any environment, no matter where they execute in the network. And so it's really all about adding security to software anywhere in the network or anywhere in the cloud.
Yes. So is XDR the new evolutionary step in security operations to tackle cyber attacks, Jim?
Yeah, I think it is. As I said before, it's a software-driven approach, and it really, as software does, it really affords the opportunity to combine some really important functions in kind of a seamless way, so that you can provide more intelligence to the network where it needs to be, when it needs to be, and using automation to kind of manage how this all plays out and how it's all managed from a central location.
And adding the let's say a 5G view, um, I think on XDR adding a lot of value, and the XDR specialized for 5G, allowing to bring 5G security assurance. So meaning ensuring a zero trust architecture, detecting attacks on the 5G core, on the 5G radio, monitoring the whole life cycle of a 5G slice, but also enabling new use cases. So, for example, talking about or thinking about business continuity of 5G services. So, I spoke with the chief security officer of an operator in Asia, and they had a problem that they had an hacker on their network that basically took over the network, used different techniques that we already discussed. So he went through different attack vectors, and he was able to take control of some network elements. And then the hacker asked for a ransom, and they had the problem that they took several days to define on how to kick the hacker out of the network. So what to do now that we are in this situation. So when we have an XDR integrated with a 5G network, we are actually able to trigger a series of responses that can serve and ensure business continuity in case of a cyber attack.
So 5G slicing, a new opportunity for CSPs to build new flex and revenue sources. How can XDR software monetize security as a service, Rodrigo?
The 5G network slices allow enterprises to have their specific needs. So it's like an enterprise can have a customized mobile operator that serves their use cases. And this applies to the network capabilities. We often talk about latency and bandwidth, but there are also differences on the security requirements and controls to be used. So let's pick an example. An hospital, from a, let's say, network capability perspective, will be sensitive to network availability, to latency, and on the security, we'll also have specific needs, for example, privacy. If we talk about an autonomous driving vertical, where, for example, the cars will need to communicate with each other to tell, hey, I'm going to brake immediately. So they will be very sensitive to latency. In the other hand, on the security front, they will be sensitive to securely authenticate with each other to prevent attacks from hackers. So there will be different security needs depending on the slices that are being created for each of the businesses. And XDR brings the foundation to offer these different security services to different needs across the different 5G slices and businesses.
Yeah, I think Rodrigo did an excellent job summarizing it. Maybe I'll just add one thing, and that is we know that with network slicing, there's going to be information sharing. So we're going to be sharing data between different parts of the network. So that's really all about securing that data to make sure that there's not a bad actor in between trying to, take that data or basically exfiltrate that data from the network. So being able to exchange data is really important when data is in motion. But I think the other part of that that's really important is identity management. And Rodrigo touched on that, being able to identify third parties and maybe have a database you need to access or be able to exchange data. So the slices are going to be extremely complex, and they're all going to be very different depending on the service. As Rodrigo said, different latency requirements, but fundamentally they're going to be really by default critical services with high performance and high risk in terms of security as well. So there's going to be a real need to be able to leverage automation and the latest software, and also being able to upgrade that software so that you can basically respond to new types of threats in real time.
And can you tell me what makes Nokia's XDR special for 5G service providers?
Most of the XDR vendors provide a generic solution for all verticals. We know that XDR or 5G requires specialized knowledge and tools, and XDR is one example. So we have a 5G specific XDR or an XDR solution designed with 5G in mind. We also have a team of 5G security researchers and consultants, and a managed detection and response team. And just to give an example of the value of having these technologies and teams, just recently we partnered with Dish, which is a North American fully cloud native 5G network. And they use our technology and our consultancy teams to create secure 5G network slices and then monitor them across the life cycle, provide security services to their customers, so slide-specific service level agreements. And then our team supports and technology supports the rapid growth of the network with automated tools, extended analytics across the network, and the cloud and the endpoints. So basically, we help Dish making 5G security design, implementation, operations, and monitoring the security throughout the life cycle of the 5G slice throughout the life cycle of the 5G slicing and through their 5G operations.
Okay, thank you both. It's been a really interesting coffee break, although I have to admit I'm actually drinking tea, but it's been really lovely talking to you both. Thanks, Jim, and thanks, Rodrigo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.